So welcome to the class. It's session 7. What we're going to be doing today is you're going to be talking about the how to build a community, and really, it's all about that. We talked about this over the last period of weeks. What is our biggest priority? Why are we doing what we're doing? And it always came down to what we're trying to do is impact people's lives, show them the love of Jesus, meet them where they're at, and bring them to a place of greater health or greater knowledge or greater hope, or to be entertained, to be whatever we're trying to do through our stream. But it's not about the content, it's about the people. It's not about our audience and how many we collect. It's about how many people we impact. We've had that illustration of which stream would you like better, the super popular one that does nothing, or the smaller one where you actually have a good conversation and moves people towards your Discord and community. We all went, yeah, obviously the second one, no question, right? I believe that the foundation of being a Christian influencer really is connecting with people. There are a lot of influencers out there, a lot of different kinds, but when it comes to, if you're going to call yourself a Christian influencer, I think one of the things that you're saying is my content, my pictures, my music, my books, my podcast, my stream, whatever it is designed to connect to people, connect to their hearts, to bring them somewhere, to so that we can bridge a relationship. It's not about, how cool will it look, or how excited, how much money it'll make, or how many people are going to share it. That's nice. Nothing wrong with that. But if it doesn't reach anybody and it doesn't connect with people, then we would consider, as Christian content creators, we would consider that to be a failure of a project. I think it's critical for us to realize a few things when it comes to people, and we'll just go through the top 4. Then we're going to cover a lot more specific stuff. But number 1 is that people are our most appreciable asset. And what that means is that what we want to invest in, what we want to put our most time, effort, energy, and talent and all that stuff into, is developing people, right? We can spend all of our money and time on the trappings and the tech and the sharing and how do I make the shorts and getting educated and all the rest of that stuff, and that's all good, and I like that stuff. I love that stuff too, but we have to remember that the place that our investment is going to come back the most, the place that we're going to be able to get the most out of, the most bang for our buck and the most bang for our energy, and that is as we develop people, as we reach people. So therefore, if we do everything else, but we miss out on connecting with people, we end up making our life harder, making our ministry harder, because all of the good is going to come from the folks that we are investing in. 2, people skills are our most important asset. It's critical that we develop people skills. Of course, I want you to be great at whatever you're doing. Be a great artist and be a great musician, be a great streamer, be a great videographer, whatever you're doing. I want you to be really good at it. I believe in excellence. I think you guys know that by now. It's a big, important part for me. But how you connect with people is more important than all of that. Therefore, developing your people skills, understanding them, understanding the psychology of humanity, understanding people's needs, understanding how you can communicate with them in a better, more efficient way, how you can taking the time to know when to pause, to find that wisdom of how do I navigate this weird conversation, or this person's coming into chat and this person's in my comments and something's going on there, to be able to find those people skills, to be able to maneuver, navigate that situation is far more beneficial. If you skip the part, or if you just assume that you are already great and the most personable, most people-oriented person of all time, then you're going to end up not developing those skills. But the truth is, there are skills that you can develop. There are ways that you can create a better experience for the people that you're trying to reach by changing how you approach it. They'll feel more loved. They'll feel more connected. They'll feel more trusted. They'll feel more engaged and purposeful. That requires skills, and you can develop those skills. Number 3, your growth and multiplication depends on developing your people into community leaders. This is a big part of it. And if you want to really grow and you want to have impact, I mean, in the whatever sphere you're in, podcast, rather, whatever your creative sphere is in, the best thing you can possibly do is reach within your group, within your audience, within your structure, the people that are already on board with what you're doing. They already care about you and the mission, and develop those people into your community leaders. They're the ones who becomes your mods, and they're the ones go on, eventually come on and become part of your creative staff, or they're the ones who help you out with your art, or they're the ones who come and support you financially. Like, it comes from within. I've made the mistake a couple times. Actually, I've made the mistake many times of trying to get help, get talent, get connection, get something from outside of my group, right? I try to, hire someone in to create the graphics, or to create the audio, or hire someone in to be this part of the board, or this part of the a really important ministry. We don't have it from within. I'm just going to go get somebody from outside who's qualified. Come on in. And it has almost always been a worse product, and the relationship, or that position, wasn't done well, and that person ended up leaving. And it was because I didn't develop a leader from within who understood, who's been walking with me for a while, who gets where we're going, who knows why we're doing, who understands the community, who knows the people that are there and loves them as much as I do. Instead, I tried to plunk somebody in who had skills, who had abilities, who had marketable whatever it is, but they didn't really get it, and they didn't really understand the people. They didn't have the same urgency as somebody would be within our community. So if you want to grow, and you want to multiply, and you want things to happen, you need to purposefully develop the people in your community. Now, what does that mean? We talked about it a little bit before we hit record here, and that is like having that Bible memory verse thing happening. How do I develop them biblically? That's part of developing, right? How do I bring people in and educate them on being a better mod, or being a better community leader? How do I draw them into becoming more artistic, or more open, or better health, whatever, psychologically? Here's what I want. Here's how to cast a vision. Here's, whatever it is for your arena, for your environment, taking them and be able to say, okay, I think you have potential. Let me give you a bit more responsibility, or a bit more authority, or a bit more something, and let me help you with that. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes effort. But if you're serious about growth, then you're going to need help. And that help should come from within your community. You have to be intentional about that. 4, a creator with good people skills can have mediocre content, but great content cannot make up for poor people skills. We've already talked in the past about how, people flame out if they don't watch their life, and they blow up their whole everything. We're not talking about that. What we're talking about how really, when it comes to content, especially for small creators, small streamers, small podcasters, or whatever, we're not going to have super ultra production quality. And it might actually make you feel kind of bad. Like, man, if I had the best microphone, and if I had the best setup, and if I had a faster computer, and if I was able to edit better, and if I had this really expensive software, then I'd be able to then I'd really blow up, and then I'd really be able to connect to people. Well, the truth is that if you have really good people skills, you love people, you connect to them, they connect to you, you conversate with them well, and they feel loved, supported, trusted, they feel open, you feel vulnerable, they feel like they can share. If that's truth, then it'll make up for a lot of the issues that you're having technologically, right? Love covers a multitude of technical problems. The other side of that, though, is if you spend all your time focusing on how great you can be technologically, or how great it can be in sound, and focus, I'm going to make this the best stream, the best song, the best poem, the best picture of all time, and then exclude, move away from all the people and not make up with that. And you get mad because they're not sharing, and you get frustrated because they're not engaging like you want them to. And you're jumping around, and you're just deciding, this is what I want to do because this is going to be working for me. Regardless of what you produce, no matter how great it is, as soon as people bump into that poor people skill, they're going to pull away, right? They may show up, look at your content, and be like, oh, that was valuable, that's kind of interesting, but they will not join, and they won't be in your Discord, and you can't develop into the leaders because they don't want to follow you, they don't want to listen to you, and they don't trust you, right? People skills are way better than having high level tech. So we're going to talk, we're going to use an illustration here from from Luke chapter 10, verse 30 to 37. You guys know the story already. I'll pull it up because it's we can read it together. So you guys know the story of the Good Samaritan. I'm sure you do. But let's just read it together. The context, of course, is you have this lawyer who's who's like, man, do I have to like love everybody, or are there people that I can like not love with that? Because that would be way easier. Because there's a lot of people I don't like, right? And so therefore, Jesus tells this story. He said, a man who's going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now, by chance, a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay when I come back. Which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among robbers? That's kind of where we're gonna go. But what I want to do is I want to use that as an understanding of how we see our audience, right? The way you see yourself and the way you see your audience will affect how you approach them and affect everything about your content and your connection. So there were 3 kind of big players in this story. The first player was the robbers, right? When they saw this person on the side of the road, and that can, like your audience, or they see this random person they don't have a relationship with, they just, there they are. The first thing they saw was a victim that they could exploit, right? This person had something, I want it. This person is defenseless, I can take it from them. These people here are people that aren't me, exist to give me something that I want, regardless of what the consequences is to them. They use people. People are a means to an end. They either use relationship, or they use violence, or they use whatever skills they can to manipulate people, because when they can manipulate them, they can get something out of them. They can exploit. I believe that there are creators, content creators, including Christian content creators, who, when they look at their audience, or they look at the world, or they look at whatever they're trying to serve, they really do see people that they can exploit for their own ends. That sounds terrible, but when you think about it, it's not just, there are people out there, of course, we can talk about money. We've all seen the clip online of the creator who's just yelling at her chat, being like, don't you guys know I'm here to entertain you, and don't you understand that it's only $5, and why aren't you guys giving me more, and just kind of losing her mind on her crowd because they weren't giving her what she wanted. But Christians can do that too. For example, say that they don't have, the support of their church, or the support of their parents, or the support of their community, or whatever, and they want validation. And so they go looking for validation within their people, and therefore the only people that they're going to serve, and what they want to do is they want to make sure that everybody is feeding them the good feelings, feeding them that validation. Or they wanted to be a minister, or they wanted to be a missionary, and it didn't work out. So they went online and they're like, I want to be a missionary. So all they see are people that they can do apologetics with, and they can argue with and yell at and whatever, because they want to feel like they know what they're doing and really be, assaulting folks for the kingdom. Like, they see that they'll feel better regardless of how the other person ends up. Even if they end up hating Jesus and hating them, this person will think, oh, well, you know what? I had a great conversation for the kingdom, and the person hates me because they hate Jesus. Turns out just because you're a jerk. There are lots of people out there who will look at their audience and say, as much as I love them and as much as I want them here, there's something I need from them. And therefore, if I don't get it, I'm going to be frustrated. I'm going to be angry with them. I'm going to secretly be, annoyed with them. Even things like sharing, liking, subscribing, following, whatever those little algorithmic numbers, or those little, sort of the things that we chart. If we start thinking about that stuff, we get into that stuff, we can start seeing the people that we're trying to love and serve and the people we're trying to gather as numbers. And like, why didn't you follow? Now I'm upset with you. You know, why are you complaining about ads? Just subscribe, right? I just put out this amazing piece of content I worked like crazy on. It only got shared this many times. I know I have more followers than that. Some of you people aren't pulling your weight, right? That is a exploitative mindset that you want something from the people that you say you're trying to serve. The next group are the priests. The priest and the Levite, they see this guy and they look on the side. They're like, man, that's going to be a problem, right? The Levite's like, I don't want to deal with that. I know what the law is. I'm going to be ceremonially unclean. That is no good. And, you know, the priest is like, I got stuff to do and I got to go. And they just, you know, they see this poor half dead person side of the road as a problem to avoid. I believe that there is a lot of ways that we can see people within our communities or the new people or whatever as people to avoid rather than gathering people, right? We're like, yeah, no, we're all about gathering and we're all about fellowshipping. We're all about having people in and we love to have you in the Discord, but always in the back of your mind is that there are no-go people, right? Someone come in and they start trolling, they're bounced. Someone comes in and they ask the wrong question, they're bounced. Somebody comes into Discord and they ask, you know, start an argument or they get hot under the collar, they're gone, right? You're always on looking for the problem, right? They see other creators, you know, other artists as people that are problems. They're not fellow creators. They're not other musicians and fellow podcasters and fellow artists. What they are, they're problems. I need to figure out how to usurp them. I need to figure out how to work around them. They're taking my audience. They're taking my people, and they're taking what I deserve. Therefore, how do I navigate through them and figure out how to work around all these other creators? They there's a lot of times as a streamer, a lot of times I've had people come into my chat and they come in really hard. They come in just heavy, guns blazing, you know, and they got questions and it's really hard. It's total non sequitur. We weren't talking about that, but kaboom, they say a thing or whatever. And it when I was first streaming, like for the first couple years there, my mods they'd light up, right? It'd be like, let's, you know, we gotta protect Christian Ninja, and that's our job, and we're gonna get this guy, and we're gonna make sure that chat is protected. And we've had conversations since because they've now seen how I approach it, and I say, no, what we're gonna do, we're gonna let them go. I'm gonna give the person the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to talk to them and ask them what they're up to and what's going on and why did you ask that, and we're going to try to see. And if they continue to troll or if they continue to just be completely unresponsive to anything that we're saying and just putting in a bunch of either gross stuff or whatever, then yeah, we'll get rid of them. But I've had more than a couple occasions where someone will come in heavy and I will engage with them and it'll end up settling into a conversation that ends up being something where they go, hey, you know what? Thank you for that. I've been in lots of chats and I've been looking for stuff, and it just ends up nobody wants to answer my questions. And the issue was they're either aggressive or they don't know the English language well, or they have autism, or they have a learning disability, or they have something that causes that communication to be a little bit more difficult, right? And what they needed was someone to go, hey, sure. If you see people as a problem to avoid and your hackles are always up and ready to defend your people, you're going to miss out on that. That's a very priestly oriented. Or for that matter, if there are people in your group they're poor, or they really struggle with language, or they really struggle with some kind of life situation, or they're constantly depressed, they're constantly putting negative and difficult and you know, like really emotionally hard things in your chat and into your comments and into your, you know, the feedback, and they're tweeting at you with these really sometimes scary things. It can easily start to see them as they're a drain. These people are an issue. These people are a problem. I need to work around them. Otherwise they're gonna eat me alive and I'm gonna spend too much time with them. So instead of being, how can I deal with this person in a healthy, constructive way that I can do whatever's best? I'm not a counselor. I'm not a professional anything, but I know they need help. How can I do that in a meaningful way? They start seeing them as a problem. How can I not talk to them? How can I just leave them on red? What's the least amount I can say to them and keep them in in my community, right? They're a problem to avoid. We have to be really careful with that. The Samaritan, he saw a person that needed to be loved. He knew what it was felt to be despised. He knew what it was like to have people walk around the other side. The Jewish people would walk literally around Samaria. Like, they would take a longer time to go where they were going just so they wouldn't have to set foot there. He knew what it was like to get the eyes of everyone around him going, I know who that guy is, and we don't talk to that guy, and that guy's evil. And they don't know who I am. They don't know who the Samaritan is. They just know that since he's a Samaritan, he must be bad. So he knew what it felt like to be walked around, to go through stuff and be avoided. So all of a sudden he had compassion on that person. He's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to be the one to walk around. I'm going to be the one who looks at this guy, and I'm going to invest. He invested oil. He invested wine. He invested money. He invested time. He whatever he was on his way to do was now late. And when he was coming back, he had to make a detour. And it was an investment that he was making, but it was motivated by compassion. I believe that the best Christian creators are the ones who understand what it's like to be on the other side of the camera and have compassion for their audience. We've talked about this a dozen times, so I won't belabor it. But you have a unique voice and a unique story that God has given you in your life for a specific audience that you can gather, and that you have the permission, you have the golden ticket to invest in. Those are the people that you're going to attract, and those are the people you can help. That'll be as a result of your compassion, because you know what it's like to be church hurt. You know what it's like to be be treated poorly. You know what it's like to be a child of divorce. You know what it's like to be someone who has been struggling with mental health issues. You know what it's like to not have enough money and to be impoverished. You know what it's like. You're one of them. And therefore, when you see that person or you sense that person, your instinct isn't, hey, that's an issue. Your instinct is, I know what it's like to be them. And therefore, why would I ever want to make them feel avoided? Because I know what it's like to be avoided. And I know what it's like to be ignored. And I know what it's like to be told to shut up. And I know what it's like to be brought low, even though I didn't think I could get any lower because someone made me feel worse. Why would I ever do that to somebody? My compassion goes out to them. Therefore, I have patience. Therefore, I'm willing to invest. Therefore, I'm willing to take my creative whatever and push it to the side, right? I was in the middle of creating a podcast. I was in the middle of creating a video. I was in the middle of creating music, but there's someone in my community that needs to talk. The creativity goes to the side, and now I'm going to talk to that person. I'm not a priest who sees that as a problem to avoid so I can get back to work. I don't see that person as someone to exploit so I can write a blog article about how great I am, or so I can use it as content sometime. It is that person needs compassion, and I feel compelled to do that. That comes from you processing your pain. And what's cool about it is that you guys, because you're on camera, because you have the microphone, because you're doing the podcast, because you're the writer, whatever it is, you've processed it more. And you're in a better, healthier place than that other person is. And so you can help them. My hope is that you be very careful as to these very sneaky feelings, because you'll assume that you're the Samaritan. You'll always just, of course, I'm here to love people. That's what I'm all about. I've never ever exploited anybody, and I've never seen anybody I've never avoided anybody. Give it some due consideration. Take a minute and think about it, and ask yourself, okay, what do I want from my audience? What do I want from the people following me? What do I expect from them? What would make me upset with them if they didn't do it? What would they have to do in order to make me happy? And suddenly I want to, and I feel like they're giving me what I want/deserve, right? That can lead to that sense of even small levels of exploitation. And in what way have I perceived my people, my audience, those around me, other creators, other people, whatever, as people that I need to work around and not with? Problems that are getting in the way of my creation, of my vision, of what I want to do with and what I think I'm supposed to be doing and all that stuff. And how have I moved and navigated around somebody when it could have been an opportunity to serve them? those things sneak up. And the more popular you get, the more people you connect with, the more time you spend, the more opportunities you'll have to be tempted in those ways. So we just pause for just a second and kind of ask that question from your own experience, from your own perspective, from the time that you've spent in creation. Have you ever stumbled into the realm of seeing people as maybe something you can get something out of, or seeing people as problems to avoid? Or do you have an experience where either you or a creator you were connected with uh, connected to you compassionately, and you felt drawn towards, and it actually, like, because life change was happening? Let's keep going. So, um, Christianity is relationships. If you summarize Christianity in 3 words, it's Christianity's relationships: vertical relationship with God and horizontal relationship with others. That's the Bible in a nutshell. What's your relationship with God like, and what's your relationship with everybody else like? So therefore, since Christianity is relationships, Christian content creation is relationships, right? So what I want to what I want this slide is about being purposeful. So let me read it. It says, a Christian content creator who wants to purposefully build a community assumes responsibility for the health and development of their relationships. So I'm going to go through that real quick because I think there's some really key stuff. And that is, so if you want to purposefully build a community, and I believe that if you're a Christian content creator, and I've met a bunch of them and they're always the same thing, they all want to build a purposeful community of whoever, people that, so they can be safe, or so they can be loved, or so they can learn how to worship, or so they can learn how to do devos better, or so they can have fun, or they can have a safe environment. Whatever it is, your thing is, right? You're trying to purposely build that. So if you want to do that, if you want to purposely build a community, you have the responsibility to assume responsibility for that community and how it's being built, right? We sort of just talked about that a little bit when it came to how do you protect your community? How do you protect what's going on in there? And how do you keep the culture? Like, your job is to keep the culture the way it is. You will set the culture for your community. You'll set the culture for your content or your comment section. You'll set the culture for your chat. You'll set the culture for your feedback loop. If you're on a podcast, whatever it is, you will be the one who says, this is what's okay and this is what's not. What you laugh at will be, that's the kind of jokes that are allowed. What you get angry at, that's the kind of stuff that isn't allowed. Like, you're the one who sets the culture. So therefore, you either do it accidentally, and it ends up being a culture that just kind of, it forms itself, and it's not necessarily one that you like, but it's one that just kind of happened, or you form it purposefully and go, no, in this server, in this comment section, in this chat, in this whatever, this is how we treat each other. This is the communication that's okay. You have to assume responsibility, not anybody else. You can't dump it on your mods. You can't dump it on your Discord moderator. You can't dump it on your community. Hey, you guys figured this out. It's you. You're the face. You're the one in charge. You're the one who has their name on the community. Therefore, it's you that has to assume responsibility for what's happening. So what do you assume responsibility for? Number one is the health, right? Physical, emotional, spiritual, relational, that kind of stuff is health. So you go, okay, how healthy is my community? Are they doing well physically? Are they doing well relationally? Are they doing well spiritually? Are they doing well together in fellowship? What's the level of health? Let me assume responsibility for figuring that out and asking questions, right? How are people doing? Or what are you guys struggling with? Let's talk about different areas that you guys are working towards, and let me figure out a way that we together can grow. Because you got struggles too. We all got struggles too. So the question is, how can we grow together? It's not that you're going to try to solve everybody's problems. It's not that you're the most best counselor in the whole world. Within the limitations you have, with the education you have, with the experience you have, you say, well, because of, we're all kind of dealing with this, I'm going to go figure out a way that we can do that. We're going to read a book together, or we're all going to go talk to this guy, or we're all going to look for this counselor, or we're all going to watch this YouTube video. That I think, I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know how to fix it, clearly. So why don't we try to work on this together? Right? That is a way that you're assuming responsibility for the health of the people that are in there. The other side of it, and we'll talk about this a bit, is that you need to make sure that it's a place where people can be healthy and are growing towards health and aren't getting worse. There, for example, there's in my chat or my Discord, I have a controversial section. Right? It's just if you want to argue, go here. This is what it is. You want to argue, go here. And there are a lot of people in my server who just mute and hide the controversial section. And there are people in my server who live. That's the only place they comment. That's their favorite thing in the world. And I've had folks that have come in to the server, become part of the community, be like, this place is great. And then they dip their toe into the controversial section and are like, this place is horrible. Everybody's mad at each other. And I don't know why. And there's so many capital letters everywhere. And the truth is that that section is for them. And so that's the conversation we have. Like, you're right. We are not a place that argues, and we're not a place that gets all hot and bothered, and we're not a place that does a bunch of controversy stuff. We don't do politics and all that jazz. But there are a lot of people who like talking about that stuff. So we put them over there. And that's good for them, and I'm glad that they're there. But you know what? That's separate. So if you don't like that, just mute and hide that section, and then all of a sudden the server's really nice again. Right? It is that, to me, is a way I can make sure that they aren't unhealthy when they come in, because some people struggle with, they want to argue, or they feel very burdened for whatever situation, and other people, they're just there to argue for the sake of argument, and that's their entertainment. And if those two people bump into each other, it can be really, really bad. So my way of assuming responsibility is giving them a place that they can go, and then another place that can be muted and deleted. And development is another one, right? You're assuming responsibility for the development. Where are you bringing people? We talk about this all the time. What are your stepping stones from where they are before you ever meet them, when they come into your content, listen to your song, listen to your podcast, to where you're bringing them through your stepping stones of relationship and development, so that they become better people, so they can be more like you, more like Jesus, more healthier. So that's your job, to put that together. And I believe every Christian streamer, podcaster, author, everybody should have some sort of system so that people can be developed. They don't have to do the developing. Okay? Not everybody's a pastor, not everybody's a teacher, not everybody's a leader, not everybody can do development, not everybody's a counselor. But within your structure, within your system, with the people that you have, that you love, that you feel a sense of compassion for, have you thought through, okay, this is kind of where I want to go. This is how we can get healthier. This is how we can grow together towards a place where we are doing well. Because there are folks who are really doing badly, and that's who I want to talk to. That's who I love. That's who I want to gather. They're lonely, they're lost, they're disenfranchised, they're disillusioned, they're hurting, they're sad, they're broken, they're church hurt, whatever it is. That's who I want to love. But we don't want to leave them there, right? So when they come in, and they, how do they get from your chat or from your comment section into your Discord, into the next step of whatever that health is? I'm not saying you have to do it all, and I'm not saying you have to run a book club every day and do all these blog posts and find all this stuff for them. The question is, think it through as a person who's decided to be a Christian streamer and build a community. Therefore, you have assumed responsibility for the health of the community and for the development of that community. Okay? You don't want to just leave them there to fester. And it is your job, because you're the one that invited them. It's the same thing. You invite someone over to your house, right? You're assuming responsibility to make sure they are safe, make sure they are fed, make sure they don't get poisoned, make sure the dog doesn't bite them. As soon as they're in the house, they're your responsibility. Well, that Discord or whatever your community building is, that's your house. So it's your job. Okay? We'll keep going. So how to meaningfully connect? How do you develop that? Like, what are the questions? What are the ways that you can develop this content, or not the content, but this community that is intentional? right? This community that folks are actually growing and developing and healthy and want to join and all the rest of that stuff. What's the way that you do that? Well, I believe that there's four different views of yourself, four different jobs that you have as a community leader that can help that to be the best possible server, best possible community, best possible comment section, whatever it is that it can be. And so here are some things that you can look at and think about to develop that community in a healthy way. Number one is see yourself as a host. We just kind of talked about that a little bit, right? Someone comes into your house, you take the initiative to make them feel safe, comfortable, valued, right? You analyze your stream, you analyze your audio, you analyze your own tone of voice, you analyze the comments, you analyze where things are, and you ask yourself the question, okay, so when someone comes in here, this audience member, this person that I'm trying to love and serve, or folks who don't know me, are they coming into a safe environment, a comfortable environment, a place where they can actually be willing to share? Or are there some trigger stuff here? And you can think about it, like for example, if you're trying to attract folks who have, anxiety, right? You're trying that's kind of the people that you want. They're anxious, they're worried, they're hopped up on stuff all day, and they're losing it. They just want to calm down, and so they're looking for a cozy stream. They're looking for soft music. They're looking for a podcast to just kind of lull them into safety, somewhere that's going to explain to them the hope that is out there. That's what they want. Then if you decide that if your community starts going, or your content starts going towards edgy stuff, or jump scary stuff because you think it's fun, or you put an alert up that makes things jump, you know what I mean? Then you created an unsafe and uncomfortable environment for the people that you're trying to attract. Thinking through that kind of stuff really is important. So ask yourself the question, is my content and my community safe for the people I'm trying to attract? Number 2, doctor. Good doctors ask questions and probe until they see the need. They do not prescribe before the diagnosis. It is so critical to be asking questions when it comes to talk to the streamers specifically, when they're in your chat, or for people who are getting text comments. Anytime you're working with text stuff, you should be asking more questions. If someone comes in and says, I'm having a bad day, this happened, and you ask no questions, and you start giving advice, you start dropping truth bombs, you start bringing in your own stories, there's a good chance that you completely missed what they were talking about, what their actual issue is, what's really on their heart. Your job is to ask questions. What's going on? What's happening? Where are you? What's the situation really? How long has it been going on? Like, what's going on here? Like, really get to know that individual person that's got some stuff going on. And for that matter, when it comes to your entire community, I mean the broad strokes of the community, what culture, or what is kind of everybody in need of? What do people in your community need? And there's going to be a vast amount of different people. Maybe nobody knows the Bible, or nobody understands how to do this technological thing, or they're all kind of working through the same health issue, or they're all trying to lose weight, or they're all dealing with mental health issues, or none of them know how to deal with their medication, or they're all angry single people who have had terrible relationships and they don't want to deal with anybody in the opposite sex, but for some reason they also do want to do that. Like, they're all dealing with this stuff. So you ask the question, in my community, generally speaking, what do they need? Right? You're not only the host, you're also the doctor. And so therefore you got to ask and probe and do questions like, hey, you guys, so what's going on in your life? And if we were to go looking for some kind of extracurricular thing, or if I were to do a stream on, starting in the morning with Devos, or if I were to start talking about certain subjects, what do you want? What's going to really touch your heart? What are you looking for? And then you can craft your content, and you can start, maneuvering towards saying, well, this is actually going to meet a need. Instead of going, I'm going to start a thing and I hope it helps. I'm going to start a thing because I think that might help. Do the investigation to ask the question, is it going to help? And then make it malleable, make it changeable, fix it up so that it does reach the actual hearts of your current audience, right? The people that you have in your that you're affecting right now. Next one is the counselor. To earn the right to speak, You earn the right to speak by listening. Let people know you care through reflective listening. Has anybody here heard of reflective listening? Do you know what that is? It's kind of cool. It's a really neat tool that you can learn. So basically, what it is that somebody tells you a problem, or tells you a story, or tells you an issue, or tells you a good thing, whatever it is. You reflect back to them what they just said and say, "Did I get that right?" So, for example, they walk in and they say, "Man, I'm having the worst day ever. I'm so frustrated. My car broke down, and then the bus got my pants muddy, and I'm so frustrated." Instead of jumping into, "Hey, man, yeah, for sure, I totally get that." Reflective listening goes, "It sounds like you're really overwhelmed. Am I right? It sounds like you've been through a lot today. Is that right?" That lets them understand that you've heard them, but it doesn't lay down any extra bits from you that covers their story. It pulls more, it draws more out of them, right? So if you can do that for the people that are in your stream, people that are in your content section, people that are sending you feedback, and instead of just simply going, bah, and throwing down an answer, or using or doing the cardinal sin that a streamer or a content creator can do, a YouTuber, a podcaster, or otherwise, and that is to see a problem in their community and think, how can I use this for content? How can I take this and use it so I can get some clicks, some views, some viral stuff, so I can make that next video, so I can take the next 10 minutes of chat, so I can have another podcast. It's that means you haven't listened, and it means you are exploiting that person, right? Could you make content about stuff? Of course. If you're a doctor and your audience needs that, your community needs that, and we're going to talk about that, sure. But the question is, that individual, the person that you've actually got in your community, have you really pursued what's going on in there? Do they feel heard before you can start asking questions like, "Hey, can I tell your story?" Or, "Hey, can we talk about this more?" Or, "Hey, would you like to share this on in the prayer group," or whatever? Have you actually been listening so they feel heard? So the question is, are you listening to your community as a whole? Are you reading what they're saying? Are you following the comments? Are you trying to get feedback? Are you picking up the vibes of where they're going? And are you listening to the individuals in a purposeful, meaningful way? That reflective listening really, really helps, especially when you're doing live stuff, because it'll draw out more of what they're going through without them getting distracted by you asking questions, right? Questions are great, but if you can reflectively listen, you'll hear more from them generating it, not you asking. The tour guide, that's the last one. You are not a follower, you are a community leader. Our purpose isn't simply to be liked, but to take people on a journey to reach a goal that they cannot reach alone. I beat that drum a lot, so I'm not going to beat it anymore. But I will say this: your responsibility is to be the community leader. And therefore, since you're the community leader, ask yourself the question, what's the point? Why do I have a Discord? What is the point of it? Is it because everybody has a Discord? Why do I have a comment section? Is it because everybody has a comment section, or am I actually doing something with these comments? Why do I have a feedback loop? If I have a feedback loop and I'm inviting people to submit to it, then why? Am I doing anything with it? Am I hearing them? And if so, when I do hear this stuff and I do get the feedback and the comments and the whatever, what am I doing with it? Because sometimes the Discord just can become a mutual admiration society, or a misery loves company and everybody just gets to sit there and be miserable together, or it can just be a dead space where you say, "Come on in," and then nothing happens. Nobody's heard, nobody grows. So ask yourself the question: if you're a leader of your own community, what do they need? Maybe your community doesn't need a Discord. Maybe your community doesn't need a feedback loop. Maybe your community, maybe you got to do something else, right? Maybe there's a whole nother place you can go. Maybe you shouldn't even be in your Discord. Maybe you should all be in someone else's Discord and say, "You know what? I don't have my own because we all go to this one. This person is a better leader, better counselor, better whatever than I am. And so we're all kind of go over there. I've talked to the leader. He's more than happy, or she's more than happy to let us come in. And that's kind of what we do, because that way you can get better care, right? I'm a mod over there, or they let me do that. But that's where we go. So ask the question, what valuable place are you taking your community, and are you leading them? Ask hard questions. We've talked about that before. Evaluate everything, especially when it comes to whether or not people are feeling helped, because that's what we want to do. Okay, we have time for a little bit for a question or two or a comment or two about this whole thing, and then we're going to jump into the review. So, what are your thoughts? I will say one of the weaknesses of what I'm sharing right now is that
Mhm.
it doesn't really cover the people who really are problems to avoid. And we got to recognize that when we are online and when we're out there are people who want to shut us down. I was a
Mhm.
pastor for a long time, and people were constantly saying things like, I have such a better experience when I'm at my ball team, or when I'm with the Rotary Club, or I'm with my, secular sewing club, or whatever it is. Nobody ever gets upset. We're all happy. So I come to church and suddenly people are all upset. I'm like, well, yeah, because Satan's not trying to shut down the Rotary Club. He's not
Mhm.
sending wolves into your baseball team. What he's doing is, like, we are the church is the place we're the enemy. This is the place where we're working against his kingdom. So yeah, he's going to fight, and therefore there are going to be some people who you literally need to deal with because they are wolves, because they are our enemies, because they've been sent to wreck things. That's their job, and it's your job as a community leader to deal with that, right? So
Mhm.
that is definitely a weakness here, and so therefore, I think the last thing I'd want you to feel is though every single person who comes into your Discord or your comments or whatever, you have an obligation to convert, an obligation to spend time with,
Mhm.
especially, I would say, especially as a female. I think you
Mhm.
guys have it twice as hard, as I do, because I I don't have to deal with a ton of the crap that you guys have to deal with, and therefore you guys have to be a little extra, cautious, a little extra sensitive as to, this is this person like a problem? Is there something that, yeah, I can work with, or is this person like gross and dangerous, right? And unfortunately, I'm not a good. We should probably figure out a way to add that to the course somehow, or figure out a way to do that, because it is.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know how to navigate that. It's so difficult for you guys. I can't imagine. Actually, well, I mean, let me ask you a question then. In light of all
Mhm.
this, maybe we can put an addendum into the old class, and this will be part of it. How do you navigate? I mean, you're all female, so therefore you probably had to deal with all this stuff. And so, how for you do you navigate this person is a problem, an actual problem? I gotta bounce this person. They're bad and gross and evil. Versus, this person could use some love. This person could use some patience. This person, it got a lot of bad things in their brain,
Mhm.
but I think there's a potential there for ministry. How do you guys navigate that?
Well, the situation with this particular individual, I don't think that he was like a horrible, gross, or nasty person. I just think he wanted more time with me that he wasn't getting because I have my work time and then I have my personal time, and he was trying to come into my personal time of gaming, and that just wasn't going to happen.
Right.
And I just confronted him and just told him, like, you have to deal with me publicly, not privately anymore.
So it
And
sounds like it
that's
sounds like
how
what
I
you're saying is
handled it.
boundaries. If
Yeah,
you
it was
have boundaries and they're
boundaries.
trying to push past
Hmm.
it, that is a sign that there's a problem.
Yeah, and I felt bad, obviously, because, like, I'm here to show the love of Christ, not push you away. But then also, I am a married woman. Like, you can't be sliding into my DMs wanting my time, because
Right.
off stream, like, that's it. If I come to you and ask you if you want to play a game, that's there's a difference, but it's done
Mhm.
in a public server
Mhm.
as opposed to doing it in a DM. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let me I kind of want to keep this going a little bit. We have a little bit extra time. And so, can you guys can others contribute to this part of the conversation? I'd like to learn more.
Yeah, like for me personally, I have this also with my mods as well. Like we have an understanding of we have like a three strike system.
Mhm.
Because again, like I want to offer patience. Like the first one is just a warning, just in case people don't remember the rules or they're not socially aware of what's going on. So then either myself or a mod will be like, hey, like just so you know, like just giving a reminder, like doing it in love, not so much as like, hey, nah, nah, nah. But then also like having that, but then also like, yeah, like what Evie saying was having boundaries. Like, um, what is it? Like I thankfully I haven't had too many issues with men because kind of like what Dom said in the chat here on the side, if people are making gross comments, I ignore them and time them out. If they continue, then I would ban them.
Mm.
So like I'll have some people, like some guys who come in and it's like, oh, you're looking so pretty today. And I'll just be like, okay, like thank you. I appreciate that. But if it keeps going and gets weird, because again, like I'm not married, I'm a single woman, but there's still a line that it's like,
It's still
okay, this
weird.
is a
Yeah,
little
yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
still weird. But for me, like it's unfortunately been like women that I've been friends with, and there's just been situations that happen and after warnings and stuff, like it was hardest when I had this really close friend of mine and she crossed the line and I had to go from being like looking at it from a friend perspective to being like, okay, this is going to affect my community. This is going
Mhm.
to hurt my community if you stay and if you keep doing this. So I had to I had to make a choice. And it was really hard because I want to be someone who is open and offers patience and kindness to everybody. But eventually, like, I had to just put my foot down and be like, I'm sorry, but this can't continue
Yeah.
because not only are you coming at me, which I'm like, I'm fine if you come at me, I don't care. But now it's spilling over into my mods, into my community and stuff. And that's not, and I want this to be a safe space for them. So,
I've heard 3 things so far, and, one is personal boundaries, making sure that you have them set up, and if they start pushing them, that's an issue. Sort of the 3 strike patience rule. It's like, okay, some people just come in and they don't know what they're doing, so let's give them a chance. But then the 3rd one is to consider how it's affecting the community that you already have. I think that's a critical one too. There's
mhm.
lots of people out there that they gather the most difficult people in society, and that's kind of their jam. Like that's what they want to do. They want to, but other people, it's just that's not who their community is, right? Their community, for example, if you have people that have suffered from abuse or suffered from some sort of sexual history problem, well, that is not a community you're going to be just introducing some gross or weird or whatever person to, because they are going to trigger everybody and it'll be a bad experience for everybody. So you got to be extra sensitive. However, if you have a very different environment, you got a bunch of people there that are in recovery and they're all kind of trying to figure out how to exist in this world as a reasonable human being that can actually have a conversation with a female. Well, then maybe that's got a bit more of a not as bad for the community. Then let's work through that and actually call that out. And but let's have a talk about it, right? I think yeah, that would be so. Those 3 sound really helpful. What would you? Is there another one that maybe you guys can add that would be helpful?
Making sure you have men in your mods. Because if you
Yes.
don't feel comfortable dealing with the situation, if that person is making you very uncomfortable, I'm very blessed to have a couple male mods who are like, can contact them and be like, okay, like from man to man, this is not okay.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, there's a
I
lot of dadless guys out there who've never really had that conversation before, and their entire structure of how females operate is from pornography. That's all they've. That's the
hmm
only and so they're completely screwed up.
Mhm.
hmm
That's definitely very true, and, like, so you have male mods. I have male mods, but something that I will do is if there's a confrontation in a Discord, so it's Discord related. We've had to have meetings before with a particular individual, because they were stirring up trouble, and I will make sure that there is a man or woman, depending on who the individual is, so that they can talk to the person 101, and I can be there too. And I always make sure to have like man, woman, and and I always let them tell me their perspective as well. So we
Right.
talk to them and then we hear their side of the story, because I can't just I mean, I could just say, well, you're doing this and this is terrible, but I hear them out too, so I can understand where they're coming from as well.
That really is going the
And
extra mile. Like
yeah,
there's a lot of people who wouldn't take that meeting because, whether it
yeah,
be time or energy, or just don't want to suffer fools. But
hmm,
that really
that's
is going the
very
extra mile.
true. And the thing is, this person decided to stay in the community even after we had a meeting with them
Hmm.
because he said, you listened to what I had to say.
Right.
And that was important because we want to keep people around, but we can't keep people around if they're a problem. And we told him. He thought we were picking favorites in the community, and I don't pick favorites. If you just happen to play with me on stream, then that's if you show up.
Hmm.
And he
Hmm.
thought that that was happening, and he expressed that to us, and that's why he acted out in the way he did. And we had a mail talk to him,
Right.
and he's still there to this day, and he still plays on stream, and he's still a part of the community because we
Part of it.
took that time to be a part of
That's
his
good.
life and help him you
I
know
tell you what, I'm going to ask you guys, just think about it. This section of the video, obviously, what I'm going to be doing in the future is kind of cutting out your guys' part, because obviously, I never asked your permission to share all your stuff, and I said I wouldn't do that. But maybe this part, if it's okay with you guys, just give it a consideration that maybe I can maybe leave this part in, or we can figure out a way to
Oh,
adapt it
totally.
into something,
mhm.
because I think it could help a lot of people. Because obviously, I mean, there are probably guys out there who struggle with this too somehow, but
Hmm.
I'm definitely not one of them. You believe it or not, nobody's ever asked me if I have an OnlyFans, not even one time. So it ends up being not an issue I have to deal with, but it does an issue that you guys have to deal with.